Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're doing a Dinomorphia deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck is a super interesting deck that revolves around getting your life points as low as possible without losing, which is a really interesting strategy, but also a very, very powerful strategy with all the cards I'm playing in this deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name description in a single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing 3 copies of Dinomorphia Therizia. This card is a great card for the deck, and it is super, super powerful. She has the ability, if this card is normal or special summon, you can set a Dinomorphia trap directly from your deck to your spell and trap card zone. Then, if your life points are 2,000 or less, this card also gains 500 attack points. If this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can banish a trap card from the graveyard to special summon one level 4 or lower Dinomorphia monster from your graveyard, except another copy of yourself. And you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. This card is absolutely crazy good and a super powerful monster for the deck. We're then playing 3 copies of Dinomorphia Diplos. Diplos is a really, really good card for this deck as well because it has a super powerful effect alongside your Therizia that has the ability, if this card is normal or special summon, you can send a Dinomorphia card from your deck to the graveyard. Then, if your life points are 2,000 or lower, you inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent. And if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can banish a trap from the graveyard, special summon another level 4 or lower Dinomorphia monster from your graveyard, which is a pretty good effect because basically they tag in and out to go into each other's cards, which is super, super powerful for the deck to be able to just basically tag in and float between these two monsters over and over again. We then play a single copy of Miscellaneousaurus. Miscellaneousaurus is really good in the deck because it combos very well with the Dinos, which is just super, super good. It has the ability that during either player's main phase, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, and then during the main phase, dinosaur type monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's activated effects, which is a pretty good effect to be able to protect your Dinomorphia cards. We then play 3 copies of Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. This is here because this deck is just super, super easy to get your cards into the graveyard. So this card is just a great card to be able to summon out to your side of the field. You just banish any 2 dinosaur monsters from the graveyard, and then once per turn, during either player's main phase, you can destroy 1 monster in your hand or field, and if you do, change all face-up monsters your opponent controls into face-down defense position, and this card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. And at the start of the damage step, if this card attacks a defense position monster, you can inflict 1,000 points of damage to your opponent. If you do, send the defense position monster to the graveyard, which is really powerful for this deck. This card is so good, and it's just easy to summon. By banishing those 2 dinosaurs from the graveyard, you can just instantly special summon out this 3,500 attack point monster. We then play 3 copies of Lord of the Heavenly Prison. This card is a great card for the deck as well because this card works very well with all the back row we're playing in this deck because it has the ability that during the main phase, you can activate this effect that this turn, this card in your hand becomes revealed into the end of your opponent's turn. And then while this card is revealed by this card effect, set cards on the field cannot be destroyed by card effects. And if a set spell or trap card is activated, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then if you activated this effect while this card was reveal, you can set 1 spell or trap directly from your deck, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn. And you can only use 1 Lord of the Heavenly Prison effect per turn, and only once that turn. This card is so good for the deck and helps out a lot because you play so many traps in this deck, and it's just a really good card, especially combo with the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno to go into a really powerful boss monster in the extra deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. We don't actually play that many spells in this deck. So for the spells, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Fossil Dig. This is here because it counts as like your 7, 8, and 9 of your Dinomorphia monsters, and extra copies of your Miscellaneousaurus because it can search any level 6 or lower dinosaur monster from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good because all of your Dinomorphia monsters are level 4 in the main deck. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance, because in this deck you don't draw that much, so this card really helps out, and you don't really go into the extra deck all that often. So you use this card to basically be able to go in and draw 2 additional cards, and it helps out a lot because you just banish 6 from the extra deck and get to draw 2, but you have to activate this card as the first card you activate during your turn. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. We play a lot of traps in this deck. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Dinomorphia Dinomorphia Alert. This card is a good one of in the deck. You can play two, but I personally like one because it has the ability that you pay half your life points to special summon it to 2 Dinomorphia monsters from your graveyard whose total level equal 8 or less. But you can't declare an attack with them this turn. Also, you can't special summon monsters for the rest turn except Dinomorphia monsters. And then while your opponent, when your opponent activates a card or effect, while your life points are 2,000 or less, you can manage this card from the graveyard and you take no effect damage from your opponent's card effects this turn, which is a pretty good effect because you're going to be running around with a lot of low life points in this deck. So this card is really, really good to help you protect from effect damage. We then play a single copy of Dinomorphia Shell. This card is a really neat card. I'm just playing it as a one of right now because it's kind of a weird card, but also really good. It has the ability that at the start of your opponent's battle phase, you can pay half your life points to special summon 1 Dinomorphia token to your side of the field. That's a Dinosaur Dark level 10, 0 attack, 3,000 defense. And if you do, for the rest of the turn, while you control that token in your main monster zone, your opponent cannot target other monsters for attacks except that one. And then during damage calculation, while your life points are 2,000 or less, if you would take battle damage, you can banish this card from your graveyard and you don't take any battle damage, which is really good because all of your traps in the deck kind of either protect you from battle damage or effect damage, which is really good because you want to go as low as you can with this deck in your life points so you get the maximum potential for your cards. Plus, a lot of the cards make you pay half your life points. We then play 2 copies of Dinomorphia Sonic. This card is a really good card because it has the ability that when your opponent activates a spell or trap card, while you control a Dinomorphia monster, you can pay half your life points to negate the activation if you destroy that card, then destroy a Dinomorphia monster that you control, which they roll into one another, so it's totally fine. It also has the ability that during damage calculation, while your life points are 2,000 or less, if you would take battle damage, you manage this card from the graveyard and you don't take any battle damage, which is pretty good. We then play 2 copies of Dinomorphia Brute. Dinomorphia Brute is kind of a neat card, but you only really need 2 copies of it. It has the ability that you pay half your life points and destroy a Dinomorphia monster that you control and 1 card your opponent controls, which it doesn't target, which is really good. And if your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish this card from the graveyard and you take no effect damage for your opponent's card effects, which is a pretty good effect. We then play 3 copies of Dinomorphia Domain. Domain is a good 3-up. This card is hands down the best trap of all of your Dinomorphia cards, with it just having an insane effect. That basically during your main phase, you can pay half your life points to fusion summon 1 Dinomorphia fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, deck, or field as material. That's really good because you can use monsters from the deck to be able to summon out any of your fusion monsters. It also has the ability that when your opponent activates a card or effect while your life points are 2,000 or less, you manage this card from the graveyard and you don't take any effect damage, which is pretty good. We then play 3 copies of Ice Dragon Prism. This card is so good in the deck because it's going to be able to revive a monster from your opponent's graveyard and then banish a monster from both players' fields that has the same type, which is just so good to out all sorts of different boss monsters, and it's a great card to get cards on your side of the field to protect your life points with. We then play 3 copies of Torrential Tribute just to be able to board wipe the opponent. This card is just such a good trap in this deck to be able to just immediately board wipe the field and just don't have to deal with any of your opponent's monsters. We then play 3 copies of Skill Drain. We don't really need our monsters' effects on the field, so Skill Drain is just super good in this deck as a 3-of, because being able to negate the effects of our Dinomorphia cards is not that big of a deal because they're mainly going to activate in the graveyard, and being able to flip this card after we've gotten set up is really going to hurt the opponent more than it's going to hurt us, so this card is really good in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. You always have half to pay until you lose, so this card is always a good card in this deck because it has the ability that when a monster would be summoned or a spell or trap card is activated, pay half your life points, negate the summon or the activation if you destroy it, which is pretty good. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing, since we're playing an Extravagance build, we're going to be playing a lot of 3-ofs. So for the first one, we're playing 3 copies of Karenjina. This card is a really, really good card. Karenjina is just such a powerful boss monster. It has 4,000 attack points, and also has the ability to take 2 Dinomorphia monsters with different names. And it's super easy to summon out this card with the Dinomorphia trap card, Dinomorphia Domain. This card is just so good and so easy to summon because it has the ability that it loses attack equal to your life points, which is not that big of a deal, especially if you skill drain it. It just comes out at 4,000, which is really good, and you can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. During the main phase quick effect, you can pay half your life points and then banish 1 Dinomorphia normal trap from your graveyard. This effect becomes that trap's effect while this card, when it's activated. And if this card is destroyed by battle by card effect, you can special summon a level 4 lower Dinomorphia monster from your graveyard, which it also replaces itself, which is pretty good. The only effect that you're really going to lose under skill drain is the copy effect, which is again not that big of a deal. We then play 3 copies of Dinomorphia Stealth. This card is kind of neat. You usually don't go into it quite as much in my playtesting as the Karangina, but this card has the ability that basically, while your life points are 2,000 or less, you do not have to pay life points to activate trap cards or Dinomorphia monsters effects. And you can only use the following effects of this card once per turn. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. And if this card is destroyed by battle by card effect, you can special summon out 1 level 4 Dinomorphia monster from your graveyard, which is a really, really good effect. But I usually don't summon this card unless I don't have skill drain on the field. If I have skill drain, I summon out this one. If I don't have skill drain, I'll summon out this one. Or if I'm going in for game, I will definitely summon out this one. For the other cards we're playing 2 copies of Gustav Max because it's super easy to go into this card and do 2,000 burn damage to the opponent. It's really easy. Basically, Lord of the Heavenly Prison plus a copy of your Ultimate Conductor Tyranno makes this card. And since we're playing the Gustav Max, we're also going to be playing the double Juggernaut Levy. This card is so good in the deck because basically it gives you a really, really big boss monster on your side of the field that can just go in for game and attack multiple times. It can go all the way up to 6,000 attack points. Since it is a dinosaur deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Lagia, which is just a really good walking negate, and 2 copies of Dolka. Dolka is again kind of a really good walking negate. I usually summon the Dolka more than the Lagia because basically what you're going to do with the Dolka is it's going to have the ability that when a monster effect is activated, you can detach your material. If you do, negate the activation if you destroy that card, which is a pretty good effect. And then you play a single copy of number 60 because doubling the attack of a 4,000 monster is just game, which is really good. And I love this card in the deck because it also gives me the potential to draw extra cards. I really like this deck and I'm really liking where it's going and I can't wait for the rest of the sport. So anyways, guys, that's it for this one, guys. This is a really fun deck to play around with. I really think this deck has some really good potential. From seeing what they've been doing with this deck in the OCG, when we get the next wave of support, this deck is going to be absolutely nuts. Probably going to be tier 1 in the TCG, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this deck can do over here. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.